Good evening, viewers, and welcome to the Personal Injury Law Show. It's a show that takes you behind the scenes in all things to do with personal injuries. Tonight we've got the complex topic of medical negligence. My name's Tony Carbine, personal injury lawyer of more than 25 years' experience. With me I've got one of the youngest partners in the law firm, Nuncio Tartaglia. Good evening, Nuncio.
Tony, evening, Alice, viewers.
And Alice O'Kane, an up-and-coming star of the legal world in personal injuries. Good evening, Alice.
Good evening, Tony. Evening, Nuncio.
So, Tony, what's in the news?
Look, we've got a lot of stories in the news, but the one that's really topical for me is this article that talks about the Hospital Survival Guide. What it's about, guys, is that people going into hospitals and they're having situations where they're leaving scissors behind, and in this fellow's case, they left a little bit of plastic, and 27 years later, he still talks about it. He calls it his buddy. Now, it's just amazing how doctors leave these instruments in patients. Alice, what's your take on it?
Well, I think, Tony, it's one of those things where once every year, at the beginning of the year, we do get a report from the papers about what's being left inside patients, and it does seem to come up with alarming frequency. So I guess that it's a bit of a worry that things are being left inside, but equally there are a lot of mistakes out there too.
Tony,
how would you feel about it? Some scissors being left behind?
Look, I'd be horrified, but do you think it's got anything to do with, I suppose, the overcrowding hospitals, that they're all in a rush and to get things through?
I'm not sure. It could be maybe someone's forgotten to do their job properly. It probably wasn't even the surgeon. It could have been the assistant.
Yeah, look, I said to have that happen to anyone is disastrous, and look, let's hope we don't see those figures, anymore. But
Alice, how would you feel about this article? There's glass in rice snacks. Now, they've got a use-by date. There's a Whole Foods Kids Scare Rice Wheels multi-packs with a best before date of 4th of the 1st, 2013 or earlier. They're being recalled because there was glass inside the packages. So there's a use-by date and a best before with glass.
Yes.
That's outrageous.
Tony, this is a real worry. This one really is outrageous. This is a real problem because a lot of these snacks get fed to kids, and that means that they're in danger with these kind of foods.
Yeah, well, you could kill someone, couldn't you?
And with that, it's not only the physical consequences sometimes with the body, but also the psychological, and that can have a disastrous effect on anyone.
Well, could you imagine a child swallowing glass or chewing on glass? It's just outrageous. And one other article, I want to briefly go to this. Falling trees cause injuries. So you've got this massive tree falling on top of a car. It seems to be happening a lot these days. Our weather's really out of control. When it becomes windy, you hear of a lot of cases where trees are falling on top of houses and cars and whatever. My take on this, Alice, is that councils probably aren't doing their job properly in terms of maintenance and inspection of these trees.
Well, Tony, it's true that, there's not a lot of maintenance that goes on out there, or if there is, we certainly don't hear about it. And it does seem to be a recurring theme. You have a windy or a bad day, and you've got the SES all over the place trying to clean up messes, and including people who've had trees falling on their car.
And Nuncio, the reason why I've raised this is because, OK, forget your car. The car can be replaced. What if that tree fell on top of a person?
Look, it could be fatal, Tony. So people have died out of it, serious injuries, paraplegia, the lot. So it can be disastrous, and it's also a lesson just to homeowners also. They're at risk too if they don't look after their, I suppose, surrounding trees at their home. They can be up for a potential case, under their public liability insurance. 3
young workers rang me up once, and they were working down at a golf club in Ascot Vale, and the trees collapsed and damaged all their 3 cars. In fact, 2 of them were write-offs, and the employer doesn't want responsibility. The council don't want responsibility. It's just outrageous. Anyway, let's get on to the topic of tonight's discussion, which is medical negligence and public liability. Now, the first case I want to talk about, which is a pretty important case, is Rogers and Whittaker. Nuncio, do you want to give us facts briefly of this case?
Oh, this case is basically a case involving Miss Whittaker. She went to see her ophthalmologist, Mr. Rogers in this case, and he said that he could perform a surgery for her that would improve the sight in her right eye. She was already blind, or almost blind in her right eye, and he said I could improve the physical cosmetic state of it and also restore some sight. Had the surgery, and unfortunately that didn't do anything to her right eye. If anything, it was more severe. Lost more sight, and she actually lost sight in her left eye as well at the same time. So basically, she's turned out totally blind. So it was a disastrous result.
But Alice, if I'm not mistaken, this surgery wasn't really meant to do much but cosmetic.
That's right. Actually, Tony, the surgery was just for cosmetic benefit only. And one of the really interesting things about this case is that this lady questioned the doctor over and over. I think she had more than 2 consultations just focusing on the effects of the operation and also focusing on what it might do to her already good eye, because she was very concerned about losing the sight.
Well, just on that issue, the High Court placed a lot of significance and weight to the fact that this lady asked so many questions.
That's exactly right.
What did the High Court do, Nons?
Basically, they said that the doctor was negligent in this case because he failed to warn or advise Miss Whittaker in this case about the risks and complications of this type of surgery. And they said that because she would have attached significance or weight onto those informed, I suppose, decisions, she would have not got through the surgery.
Well, the issue here basically is that the High Court said you've got to warn a patient of a material risk.
And Tony, that's a really important comment, because in this case, the risk of this lady becoming blind in her good eye was 1 in 14,000, which is a really tiny risk. But the High Court found that she was so particularly concerned with the particular risk for herself that it was a material risk for her, whereas it might not have been for other patients. And so that's why she succeeded in the end.
And Nuncio, can I say this? If someone gave you a 1 in 14,000 chance of something going wrong, I'd hazard to guess you'd still have the operation, would you?
Oh, look, you definitely give strong consideration, Tony, but when you're talking about the eyes, you've got to be very sure on what you're doing. But look, this is a landmark case because it not only, I suppose, it goes away from just having a negligent surgery, but also goes into the realm of, advising properly your patients. So it's an important case, Tony.
Well, it just shows that the courts aren't interested in doctors being paternal.
That's right.
And playing mother and father.
That's right.
It's about giving the information and letting the patient decide. Can you give me the facts of Lanza and Patterson, Alice?
Yes, Tony. This is another medical negligence case where Dr. Lanza treated a lady for a breast reduction. But interestingly, in this case, there are a lot of ways you can have a breast reduction. But this lady had done a lot of reading on the internet and decided that she wanted a liposuction procedure as opposed to a full-blown operation where tissue is removed. And she went to Dr. Lanza to get that done. But unfortunately, following the operation, she had a lot of post-operative pain and discomfort, and she had a terrible time after the operation, and the court found in her favour in the end because of the way the doctor had conducted himself.
Can I just stop you? Nuncio, in this case here, Dr. Lanza is all over the papers, on radio, and he holds himself out to be an expert.
An expert in the field.
Well, was he an expert?
Actually had no surgical expertise from what I understand from the authority, which is, I suppose, would be disastrous for the patient. They're thinking they're going to an expert in the field, they'll do the right procedure for me, and he doesn't have the relevant qualifications. It's just bizarre, isn't it? It's a worry.
But look, there's a couple of interesting twists in this case, but we've got to go to a sponsors break. So viewers, please stay tuned. We'll be back very shortly. Thank you.